Also, we have two types of swap in this chapter, right? One is the interest rate swap, and the other one is the swap, but they are most likely the same. Okay. Maybe the largest difference between these two is the exchange of principal. Well, because for interest rate swap, basically you don't need to exchange the principal. The principal for both sides are the same, and you pay 1 million to that counterparty, and then counterparty pay 1 million back to you. That's not necessary, right? Only incur two more transactions, but meaningless. But in currency swap, you can see that you are even like in the later example, you can see your principal amounts are not only determined by your current exchange rate, but also it can affected by some expectation in the future, right? So in general, it is necessary for us to maintain the exchange of principal with currency swap. So the exchange happens both at the beginning and the end of the lifetime of the contract. So by the end, the cash flow will look like this table. But you can see really the currency swap like a double investment to each other. Like one side invest their dollar cash deposit to the other side and require for say 4.5 is 1.9. Okay, but I require a specific percent of requirements throughout the time, and then by the end of the lifetime, you will get back your principal and one piece of interest payment. And on the other side, just at the same time, the one holds sterling, they simultaneously invest their sterling into your side and require a specific amount of return rate, and then eventually they will get their principal back as well. So the structure of a currency swap is really the same as the summation of two bonds. So and when you do the evaluation, this structure actually become very helpful because if you follow the bond evaluation, you don't even need to imagine that you have the notional principal payment to each other. Rather, you really have say the principal payment to each other by the start and the end of a lifetime. Okay, so the usage of currency swap is exactly the same as the usage of interest rate swap, right? Basically, you can use it to exchange for liability or convert your asset. So the purpose is all the same. Well, convert liability or assets investments somehow have the sense of hedging, but if you want to do the speculation, say if you want to speculate in the exchange rate change, you can also use swap contract, right? And all the logic are almost the same as we use it for hedge for converting. So basically, right, the hedging and the speculation is like the two sides of a mirror. If you understand the logic for hedging, you understand how to speculate. That's it. Well, so when we talk about the comparative advantage in interest rate swap, we mentioned some criticism, say because the credit risk will create more influence in the future. So by the end, if you think about the comparative advantage and the framework of interest rate swap, maybe for those triple B corporation with like most company with lower credit rating, perhaps the eventual gain they get with the comparative advantage will not as big as we expected in the model. Well, that's true for interest rate swap because the credit rating itself have a nonlinear relationship with the eventual borrowing cost. Right? In recent year, maybe the credit risk premium you add to that triple B corporation is just several BPs, but in a long term, maybe you will add a much higher credit risk premium, and that won't be linear with the years. But under the currency swap, actually the scenario become much easier because most likely the comparative advantage and the currency swap was not bring by credit risk, but bring by tax advantage. Right. So in the textbook principle, they use US dollar and Australian dollar as an example. But okay, let's you take some very extreme case. Okay, let's take US dollar and say Singapore dollar. Okay, so in Singapore is an island country. I was taking my PhD there. So their tax rate is really low. The highest income tax bracket is 22%. That means even though maybe you can earn 1 billion Singapore dollar per year, but only you should only pay the 22% of to the government as your tax. But in the US, right, the highest tax bracket now they have the billionaire special tax bracket, which is just 50%. That means some income above a specific threshold. If you have that income, then half of them will go to the government directly. Right? Then when you have these the two countries, right, like with totally different tax concepts, tax regulation, actually that will lead to some comparative advantage with these two currencies. So you can think about that. If you borrow 1 million Singapore dollar in Singapore, right? As a company, if you borrow that amount of money, that amount of money will bring you the tax shield. Basically means that will reduce your corporate income tax. But because the income tax in Singapore is kind of low, so even you borrow 1 million, perhaps the net benefit you get because of that 1 million may not be that high. But then if you borrow, say, 0.7 million US dollar, so the amount is almost equal to 1 million Singapore dollar in Singapore. Then you borrow say, 0.7 million US dollar in the US. And if you are a very large company, then your corporate income tax level should be very high. Then with that 0.7 million, right, your tax benefit will be very high, considering about maybe you will have a marginal tax rate equal to 45%. So when you think about tax advantage as your comparative advantage, this one is really the thing you can get is a swap contract, because tax advantage itself merely change over time, right? You have this tax shield within 1 year, or have this tax shield for almost 20 years. As long as the government won't change their tax policy, your tax shield amount should always remain at the same level, right? So comparing to the uncertain credit risk premium, you have a certain tax advantage. And with that certain tax advantage, basically, the competitive advantage you can get with small contract is also certain. So with this example, although I want to really demonstrate this example, but you can practice it a bit. With this example, you can design two fixed rate for both currencies, which can make both of the companies get half of the comparative advantage back. Okay, the valuation part, still they are exactly the same as the interest rate swap, because right, the currency swap is just involve two currencies, and the interest rate swap will involve one currency. The other things are all the same. So the only thing you need to take care when you using the two methods to evaluate the currency swap is you need to know that for both currencies, they have their specific risk-free rate for discount. In the example here, we have in the side, we actually assume that all Japanese discount rate are 4% and all the US discount rate are 9%. So basically, we assume a flat interest rate curve to help our calculation. So when you calculate the PV, you must make sure that you discount each cash flow based on each currency's specific risk-free rate. And for the forward exchange rate, right? We used to talk about how to measure the fair forward price for currency exchange rate, right? In chapter 5. So following the same method, you can determine the forward exchange rate in the future, and use the forward exchange rate. You can convert the cash flow in Japanese yuan, then convert it into US dollar, then take the net cash flow. You will get the net kind of value for this. Okay, so well, the last point for this slide is the composition of the swap. So although we have two slides here, but let me switch to the very early example, which is the Microsoft one. So as I said before, so if you think about the swap as a portfolio of the different forward contracts, right? Then each line represents one forward contract. In the interest rate swap, this forward contract is exactly a five. So, well, by right, swap itself is still a forward style contract, which means that by the time you construct this contract, the contract should have zero value. So it should be fair to each other. Then the swap rate should be well determined. In this example, if we say, so all the LIBOR rates here are not the actual rate you observe in that day, but rather that's the expected forward LIBOR rate we calculate based on the interest curve. Okay, once you have the forward rate increase in time, that means your LIBOR zero curve is upward sloping. So to determine a fair swap rate for this contract, a fair fixed rate swap increasing floating rate, right? Usually for this contract, right, we define 5% as a fair rate. So you can see comparing to the 5% fixed rate, earlier LIBOR, 6 months LIBOR is much less than the fixed rate, but when it comes to later time, it turns to be higher. And that makes Microsoft suffer some boost at the beginning, but later they get some benefit. Well, for a small contract, since it involves several transactions in the future, the timing of default can be a very serious problem. So let's take one example. Say until now, until here, September is 2015. Okay, so Microsoft have paid 0.5 million and then get back 0.15 million. And for the next 6 months, Microsoft are expecting to receive a bit more and also receive more and more over time. But here, for Microsoft, they know that all the bad time has passed and good time is coming. But for their counterparty, the counterparty has enjoyed some of the benefit, but later they know that by expectation, they will suffer some lose. Or if you use the valuation as your language, then at least now at this time point to Microsoft, this swap contract has a positive value, but to the counterparty, this swap contract has a negative value. So to Microsoft, right, have a positive value in this swap contract may not be a problem. Right? If they don't want to follow this obligation, maybe they can sell this swap contract to someone and get the exact value as the payment. But if you think about their counterparty, right, maybe the counterparty will have an intention to default because they know that in the future, all the thing awaiting them is lose and lose after all. So for them, right, if they really can balance the cost of default and the benefit they can get without this swap contract, perhaps they can choose default. Right. So in the financial market, after all, right now most of you are already have a lot of concepts in finance. You know that morality is not even a thing in financial market. Right? Once the profit, once the gain are well managed, the morality is even priced. So to conclude this case, right, we say although by the start of this swap contract, by the start it should was zero, but because in the future the exchange rate, the interest rate may change, or it's just because that a part of the forward contract in the future have a non-zero value, that will lead to a positive value to one counterparty and a negative value to the other counterparty. And to the positive value holding company, actually they have a concern on the credit risk because right now the other counterparty who hold the negative value of this swap contract have a higher possibility to default. So that's the conclusion. That's the warning we want to take with the swap contract, because swap contract actually it can be viewed as a portfolio of forward. So once some of the forward has been completed, but some of forward remains there, you may think about that the credit risk behind it. It will change a little based on the exact value behind the swap contract. Okay, so other type of swaps, I won't really talk about all the things, but rather I will talk about several of them. So last time we talked about advertising and setup, right? This is our pair. Advertising basically means that we have an asset at the principal in this swap will decrease over time. Step up means the principal of this swap will increase over time. Okay. The other pair of swap is here, that is extendable swap and putable swap. Extendable swap actually have an implicit option in this swap contract which allow one or two counterparties to extend the contract. Okay, perhaps the initial duration, the initial maturity of the contract is maybe 3 years, but then you can use the option to extend the contract to maybe 5 years or even more. So accordingly, putable means that the one holding the putable option can terminate the contract slightly earlier than it. So these two are kind of having some implicit option. Then, okay, we have the other one so-called swaptions. Basically, a swap pass option. So you have the option to enable the swap contract or not as the long position holder of the swaption. So anyway, the swap itself, right? Since it does talk about an exchange of cash flows, so it can take any form, it can have any conditions, just depending on your evaluation, and other conditions can be characterized with the valuation table. So eventually, no matter what kind of condition you add into this swap, you can also think about how this condition can affect the valuation of this swap in the future, and that will lead to the change in the swap rate designation at the beginning. Okay, so yeah, that's all for this chapter. We don't really leave too much for here. So next, I would like to talk about the chapter 7 here. Right. So Sorry, capital 8. Sorry. So for capital 8, we have some interaction part. Okay. Because I just want to know your knowledge about this. Okay. So you tell me, what do you know about the financial crisis in 2007? Yeah. Just what do you know? What do you know about it? All right. So yeah, what's your knowledge uh, about this financial crisis? Just some random things is okay. I'm already required to answer to technical things. Uh, mm-hmm. Good. Yeah. So what about you? I think that you can add after the crisis. Okay. I need a bit more. I need a bit more information. So yeah. So what do you know about this? About financial crisis? It was happening. For you in hands. Well, if you call this a brief recession, I would say not exactly. Usually in the US context, if you talk about brief recession, we're talking about 1920s. So something before war. Good. That seems also very interesting. But actually, that is the event that developed the strategy of Warren Buffett, right? The so-called the value-based investments. So okay, I didn't get what I want. So one more. So yeah, what do you know about the okay, friends? Yes, good. So anything wrong with that? Mortgage, then they fail to return or they default their payment. Um, Banks goes bankruptcy because they can't pay back the money to anything. Or you want it to be okay, good. Yeah, actually, yes, that's the thing I want. Okay, basically, what component has told you is about the like more normal part. Okay, so the normal part here is one thing I want to emphasize today because the normal part behind this credit risk crisis is not the main driver of this financial crisis, but it is the main driver of our current situation in China. So the situation now is like this. Okay, if there is one apartment like worth 100 million, okay, you always need to have your initial payment, maybe 30% of it, and then like usually you don't have enough. For most of people, they don't have enough saving on their account to cover all the payment. So they need to borrow from the bank loan. Okay, so this loan was 70 million. Okay. So in previous years, in China, okay, you can see that actually the loan contract in housing are actually quite crazy. I said crazy means so typically when you think about loan, we are actually talking about the personal loan, right? So we are acting as a person who hold this house and then we sign on the contract with the bank as the sole obligator. But what really happens in the previous year in China is most of people they cannot get enough loan with their personal credit. So they combine two parts, commercial loan plus their personal loan. So this personal loan can be repaid by your like social security account, right? So and this one will enjoy at least a relatively low interest rate. But for the commercial loan part, it was initially offered for those who want to run business. So this one will have a relatively high interest rate compared to the personal loan. So overall, the financing cost of a mortgage loan in China is kind of higher than the pure personal loan interest rate. But most of people are very happy with this loan. Why? Because everyone will expect that housing price will increase. So once the housing price increase to say double, that's not an extreme case at all. Right? If you check the housing price in Shenzhen and Beijing, that they can double within 1 year or even several months. So once the price double, even though for your loan you have a much higher interest cost, but still because the underlying asset here, what we call it collateral, because if you default, this house should be give up and turns to the asset of the bank. So the underlying assets are much more value than your loan comparatively. So even though you pay a bit more compared to those who only use personal loan, you are willing to do that. That's why many people in China they are really like crazy with house application. Like I remember that around that's before the financial crisis. When in Wenzhou, there are a group of people they just traveling throughout the country and try to buy those they believe are underpriced. So that was quite famous. Okay. So, but what happens right now in China? I'm not even talking about the U.S. What happens in China right now is we are suffering a slow reduction in the housing price. It is slow, but over time it drops a bit. Okay, so maybe after 1 or 2 years, the housing price of this loan actually changed to 50%, 50 million. Okay, and perhaps by that time your loan still have maybe 60 million remain, and that will be or even like 40, but still that will be a very pain choice for you because now you know that your house only was for 50 million, but you already pay 30, and you need to pay all the loan here. So in total, you at least your obligation is 100. But after pay all the 100, the only asset you get was 50 million only. So usually, no matter you decided to default or not, here when we have this scenario, which is the outstanding loan amount is larger than the exact value of your asset, we call this scenario called technical default. Technically, if you default, you will be better. That's what happens in China. So this scenario, well, in the investment class, maybe they tell you that that's the reason for the financial crisis. Okay, let me just tell you, this one is not even the main reason. Because to solve this technical default, it is actually quite easy. And this scenario actually happens in the recent 100 years for many times in many different countries. So most of the countries have a very comprehensive strategy to think about this, to solve this problem. They can discuss both sides. They can discuss this, so the government can send some agents to the commercial bank, say, okay, so nowadays, because if you still resist with your previous loan strategy, most of the mortgage borrower will default, and eventually it will hurt your balance sheet. It will make you bankrupt. So to make your business sustainable, we would recommend you to reorganize your debt, or we call it debt restructuring. You can negotiate with the mortgage borrower again. Maybe perhaps you can reduce your loan amount, maybe from $70 million multiply for 70%, or multiply for 60% to match with the decrease with housing price. Right, and from the investor side, from those household side, the government also can have some strategy, which happens right now in many different cities, right? In Beijing, right? Before right now, you need to have the social security account in Beijing, and you must have your whole family there. You have this requirement, that requirement. So you even have, say, a score for your housing purchasing, say the priority. Then now they can release all those restrictions. Say, okay, before now, maybe they have the additional tax on those second apartments, but now maybe they release that restriction. So that can definitely increase the demand and to maintain the housing price in a certain level without any drop in the future. So this is not even a problem. So that was very interesting that many of my friends in China, they kind of complaining about current economic situation, that why housing price actually decreased, not increased dramatically as before. That one, well, it's actually quite common in any country, and this won't be very harmful for the overall financial environment. And the really harmful thing actually happens in the following context we want to introduce here. Okay, so the first thing we want to talk is the securitization that Guy has said. That is a good point. Okay, so the purpose to have a securitization is after that. So let's talk about some history thing. Okay, historically, okay, maybe you don't know, but that's a thing I love to talk. Okay, so after 1970s, okay, so the United States has experienced a very good time, because after 1970s, all the crude oil crisis passed. So the Europe and the North America turn back to their normal economic development, and they kind of recovering from the crisis. On the other hand, the USSR kind of facing some trouble because of the oil price decrease. Okay. So then it comes to the 1980s. The US finds some problem because that with the economic growth, the demand on mortgage loan increased rapidly. But the process of managing mortgage are still mostly depends on manual work. Okay, 1980s, right? 1980s, those computers, laptops, PCs are not even as prevalent as right now. So all the approval of mortgage loan are still depends on manual work, but the demand on loan are like dramatically large. So, well, I mean that's actually reasonable because, right, most of you may know that in the U.S. they have the thing called the American dream, right? So if the owner of the house working very hard, then all his family can live in the big house, very decent, and enjoy a very brilliant American style life. So that's their American dream. So I mean, comparing to Chinese, the American also have a very strong demand or expectation of owning their own house. So the relationship between deposit and the loan, which actually support our traditional commercial bank system, are not actually suitable in 1980s. In 1980s, the loan demand increased too much, but there is no enough deposit in the bank. You're really right. In the traditional framework, let's just call it traditional. Okay. In the traditional framework, the bank should first get some money deposit from some individuals, then they can lend this money out, right, to those mortgage borrowers. That's how the system runs, right? The commercial banks themselves are not a central bank, not the government. They cannot print money. They can only use the money on their accounts. That's a conventional framework. And beyond that, I don't know whether in your textbook, in your say economy class, whether you have this concept, which is so-called money multiplier. Okay, in my age, I have this concept because when I take the education, this money multiplier is still effective in the market, but now this one is not. This one disappeared in the U.S. Now U.S. use IOFR management. Comparing to this. Okay, so this money multiplier talk about the same thing. So basically, it describes the economy cycle, like how the deposit goes to bank, and then the bank lend out the deposit as a loan, and then the loan takes some transactions, run and run and run, then it turns to someone's deposit again, and it turns to the bank's hand again, and then the bank can lend out that loan again. So how the economic cycle with a bank as the center runs. But this one is kind of outdated. So this one cannot support the growth of the US economy, especially the mortgage market. So what we did, the US economy, which is the so-called securitization, totally flip-flop this relationship. Now, the relationship becomes you first have a loan without any money. You have the egg first, and then you create a chicken. Chicken is so-called ABS, asset-backed securities. So typical asset-backed security looks like this. Okay, here in the picture, we can see our asset 1 to asset n. Each asset represents one contract with mortgage. That means that each one asset represents one loan. Then the investment bank package this all these assets into one SPV. It's called some vehicle. Okay, and then they reshuffle the return into different tranches. Typically, the tranches can be many. I have seen one ABS with more than 30 tranches, but usually we can classify them into 3 typical types. So senior tranche, which is the safest tranche. This one have the seniority to get repayment. That means once there is any cash flow generated in this asset pool, it will first turn to senior tranche. Okay. So in this case, right, they can generate some return, right, slightly higher than the risk-free rate, right, because the mortgage itself has a free rate. So the return here is slightly higher than the risk rate. Then if all the required return are fulfilled in the senior tranche, if in addition to this amount of money, there is still more money generated in this asset pool, then the additional money will turn to the mezzanine tranche, which is the one in the middle. So this one will generate a slightly higher return because the return in this pool is conditional on the requirements in the senior tranche. After senior tranche are fulfilled, you will have some money. If like the default rate is too high, then in this pool you will get no money because all the cash flow maybe turns to the senior tranche, and if they cannot fulfill all the requirements in this senior tranche, they cannot have extra money to the next tranche. Okay. So if you can fulfill if the default rate is really low and you can fulfill the tranche, then it turns to the equity tranche. So the equity tranche will only generate any return after all the previous tranche are fulfilled. And because of this very heavy restriction, the equity tranche here have a very extreme outcome. LIBOR plus 2000 BP. You know that 1 BP is 100 BP is 1%. That means you have a risk-free rate plus 20% in return rate per annum. That's awesome. That's insane. If you think about the average investment return in the market, one asset can generate 20% per annual return to you. That's insane. Although this can be a conditional return. So the structure behind those tranches, we call it the waterfall structure. So all the asset cash flow, like the waterfall from the asset pool. So the asset pool will first fill into the senior tranche, and once the senior tranche are fully filled, the extra cash flow will turn into the mezzanine tranche, and then the mezzanine tranche got fulfilled, then the additional one will go to the equity tranche. So you can see that in this asset-backed security, equity tranche have some customers. Those customers are those lottery-like customers. They love to spend a bit of money into the financial market to bet for an extreme return. So although this one is really, really risky, but because of its high return, it won't be worried about the potential buyer. For senior tranche, it is also very attractive because usually because of other tranches behind this senior tranche as buffers, the senior tranche stays in a very safe place. So that's why usually if the credit rating agency try to rate this senior trend, usually they will give the senior trend the highest rating. And also because of those buffers and because of the nature of mortgage asset, which is based on the lending rate rather than the borrowing rate, the senior trend itself, comparing to other assets with AAA rating, can generate a relatively high return. So that means maybe in the market that you have a AAA bond, you have AAA equity, you have AAA ABS senior trend. But maybe for those equity and bonds, their average yearly return maybe 4 or 5, but senior trend can give you 7 or even 8%. That becomes extremely attractive to many institutional investors. You will see that in the financial crisis, most investment banks and commercial banks, like Lehman Brothers, like the Merrill Lynch, Citibank, all of them have a very large position in senior trend. Because for them, right, anyway, they need to have some cash management for their cash on balance. And comparing to invest in those AAA bonds, AAA ABS will bring them higher return. Why not? Why not they choose this? But once we think about these two scenarios, one for safety investor, one for those risky investor, the one live in the middle looks quite embarrassed, right? So the mezzanine trend here, it does not have enough high credit rating, but it does not provide enough high return as well. So usually, the mezzanine trades are the hardest to sell in the market. Well, so those ABS managers, they need to find some way to sell this out so that they can maintain the waterfall strategy. If they cannot sell this, then this trend disappears. The waterfall does not accomplish, right? So what they did is, how about if we have this ABS construction strategy, we use the same strategy to manage this mezzanine trend again. So the scenario here is, in the market there are much ABS. Okay, maybe like you have 20 or 30 ABS, and any of them have one mezzanine trend, and the derivative developer, the derivative manager, they combine all the mezzanine trends together, just like how they combine the loan asset here. Then they package all the mezzanine tranche into an additional ABS, and this ABS can be separated into several different tranches again. And you can repeat this strategy again and again for those hardest to sell. So that's how the insurer chain goes up. Right? You first have the ABS and the ABS for ABS. We have another name for this, which is called CDO, collateral debt obligation. Okay, so CDO means the ABS of an ABS. And then you even have the CDO of CDO, we call it a synthetic CDO. So this chain extends again and again and again. And any time you make a package, the total value of this asset kind of incorporates some expectations, also incorporates some backing, especially for this equity trade. Right, those investing equity trade, also their expected return, considering about risk, is not that high, but you can't stop those lottery lovers who heavily invest in this equity trade. Also for the senior trend, because they can provide higher return compared to other assets, they are usually overpriced. So after every round of securitization, the corresponding value in this derivative respect to the asset increase a bit. If one more CDO increase a bit, if one more CDO increase a bit. So eventually, we find a very strange thing that CDO itself, we call it the collateralized debt obligations, right? The purpose with obligations is trying to insure the underlying assets. But eventually we find that we actually have billions of dollars to insure just several million of US dollar assets, because we develop really much of CDOs again and again. But this scenario won't be harmful when the market is good. If you think about this picture, right, demonstrate the housing price in the US, you will find that when the securitization boom over time, just after 2000, the housing price also increased. So referring to the previous case we have here, if the housing price increase, nobody wants to default, because if they have the right to sell this house into the market, right, they can easily repay all their debt and get some additional benefit because of the price increase, right? And even though if they cannot repay the debt, the bank will be very happy to accept those collateral if those individuals default, because if they don't default, the bank will only receive 70 million. But if they default, the bank will receive more than 100. So the bank even expecting that perhaps maybe you can try to default so that I can earn more money. So that's why during the securitization, those CDO managers, they don't even care about risks, because risk will bring any risk associated with the mortgage borrower will bring them more return. Any default happens in the mortgage borrower, with the mortgage borrower will lead to more return to them. They will be very happy with it. So you can see the market become a bit strange over time. Okay, so in addition to the derivative market, in addition to those CDO managers, in addition to those crazy investors, include those institutional investors who take a long position in those senior tranche. Okay. The government and those commercial banks also play a role in the mortgage market boom. So the government, because after 2000, we know that there is a 9/11 attack, right? So all the U.S. citizens was panicked because of the terrorism, and the government trying to say recall the confidence inside the heart of every U.S. citizen. So they kind of trying to build the American dream for each one, and then so to how they have the American dream, they first need to let them to have a big house to enjoy their American life. So the governments implicitly release their invigilation on those commercial banks. So before that, they have very heavy regulation in those commercial banks when the commercial bank trying to offer some loans, right? They have some double check. The government agency has some double check. Say, okay, I will check this and that to make sure that your loan is legal, to make sure that you don't have an affordable credit risk. But then they kind of release these restrictions, and those mortgage originators, when they find that the housing price increase, and then the invigilation from the U.S. government kind of released, the best choice for them become they also relax their lending standard. Right, that's not harmful to them because the housing price is just too high, and housing prices even increase over time. Even though they relax their lending standard, right? Maybe some of them, maybe more people will default, then they can still get back their collateral and sell them in the market for a higher price. So for them, why not? Why not relax the lending standard? And that actually creates one vicious cycle, which is once you release your lending standard, more and more people come into the housing market to buy a house. And that push the demand increase, that push the price of house increase. And the house price increase let you feel more confident when you're relaxing your lending standard. So with the housing price increase, you relax your lending standard again. And once you relax your lending standard again, the housing price increase again. So like your left foot stack on your right foot and your right foot stack on left foot, you just fly into the sky. That's what happens in the US before the financial crisis. Okay, so to match the progress with the other sections, so let's end our today's sections slightly earlier with this movie section. It's a movie called Big Short, okay, taken by some US film company. So and it really take a very easy explanation for the concept of ABS and CDO. Okay, so in this video, you will see that there is one professor comes into a conference and trying to talk with a CDO manager. You can see how the CDO manager perform and how those things lead to the eventual collapse of the market.
The Big Mac was a revelation. I appreciate that. Worried you in response to getting played, well, this is an opportunity and you need your best. Try not to get too righteous in this interview. Okay, fine. This is getting a real solid gold answer. I'm CEO manager. CEO manager. Fine. I didn't realize something. So like the securities that go into the CEO portfolio, yes. You must more or less yes. The investors or no? The investors. Yeah. But how much are going to send you any customers unless you Merrill Lynch's means in your CDO? Good question. Let's just say Merrill and I have the relationship. This. So the CDOs.
No risk.
So it's great. They give us if you want to sell. They give you clients to give you money to run your business. If at least doing so, if you represent the investors, is that right? Yeah. But we're done the Merrill Lynch bill. Okay. We're New Jersey. You're 20 minutes away. Okay. 5 years to help country. It's not gonna. That's CDO squared. CDO of the CDO. Okay. And there's CDOs made up of the opposite side of the configurations. Call them synthetic CDOs. What is synthetic CDO? That is fucking crazy. So it's awesome. Space is starting to boil. It's a bad guy. Well, 50 million is 6 months. How much money could be out there getting in your synthetic CEO? $1 billion. If the mortgage bonds, the marketability started with a match. How much bigger is the market for insuring mortgage bonds than actually? 20 times. If the mortgage bonds were the match, CDOs were the kerosene silk rags, and the synthetic CDO was the atomic bomb of the Trump president and his finger over the button. It was at that moment, in that dumb restaurant, stupid look on the face of Mark Bond realized the whole world economy might collapse. know what you're thinking. What the fuck is a synthetic CD-ROM? Well, here's Dr. Richard Thaler, father of behavioral economics. You're gonna go. Explain.
Okay. You.
10 million because this is to represent. Okay, Selena has 18, the other 27. Chances of winning this hand 87%.
So my odds are good. I'm on a winning streak. Everybody in this place wants to get in on the action. How would I lose, right?
Now, this is a classic error. In basketball, it's called a hand fallacy. Player makes a bunch of shots in a row. People are sure they're going to make the next one. People think whatever's going to continue to happen in the future.
Bet you 50 million she wins. I'll give you a 3-1 odds.
3-1 odds? Okay, I'll take that bet.
Now, somebody else is going to want to make a bet on the outcome of their bet. That would lead to synthetic CDO number 2.
Be 2 million bet lady. Things that.
We will win. I want great payoff.
About 21.
Deal.
This will go on and on with more and more synthetic.
And you can transform an original $10 million investment into billions of.
Good deal. Maryland Society values me. Probably big.
For everything happens. I'm doing more stuff.
Good about that, the collateral falls in bank.
Yeah.
Where you going?
I'm going to try to find moral rejection.
Okay, so that's a clip from the movie. I think this should be a very nice movie. So right, you can see that as a CDO manager, right? So first, they don't really care about risk. Second, they are even proud of with their current situation because build more CDOs will increase the amount of asset under their management, and that will directly link to their year-end bonus. So basically, no matter how the risk goes down, they will earn more because they develop more CDO contract, right? And this is the synthetic CDO1. Actually not really a CDO. So CDO of CDO is just a CDO. The synthetic CDO having some other hedging instrument. So the purpose is to transfer the credit risk from one party to the other party. So once you have the synthetic CDO1, it makes the transaction very safe, at least it looks like. So all the people in the market feels very happy. Like the CDO manager get their bonus, the loan borrower they get their dream the house, and those bank they get more loan contracts so that they can earn more margins. And even the government get more votes because of the economy boom. Everyone win. But by the end, the bubble burst. Okay, so yeah, that's the end of today. If you have any questions, let me know. If you don't have any questions, so let's meet next week. And don't forget that we have the exam next Friday. Okay, the exam range will cover from chapter 5 to chapter 9. We'll spend one more class to finish the next chapter.